Good afternoon, everybody. Almost good evening, and we have come to the end of the 3-day marathon conference, the second one from India. 36 sessions, and all, as I say, is every session is worth reading 10 books on that subject. And it's a new perspective on a lot of things that we didn't know existed. How we are looking at cancer, mental disorders like Alzheimer's, and so many other spectrums as well. Each host has done a wonderful job. Each guest has done a eye-opening session, and personally I've been very enriched. I'm sure all our hosts and all our audiences have been extremely enriched. Dr. Tanmoy is a very prominent doctor from Kolkata. He's practicing at Apollo Hospital in Kolkata, and he's also a low carb follower. He encourages people to follow low carb. He himself practices low carb, and he's an anesthetist. Welcome, Dr. Tanmay. And this is an open session for all of us.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Sashi. Thank you, Manu, for inviting me for the second time. This is the second time I'm here. And I'm very happy to be amongst all of you who are so knowledgeable and experienced about the entire low carb phenomenon. As Ira was mentioning, I do follow low carb myself, and I do have a small practice also. I don't have much time to go out of my mainstream and do, but I do have a small practice where I use the low carb method for reversing obesity, diabetes, and few other diseases. So even my experience has been wonderful, and the results have been absolutely awesome. And I'm very happy to be with you here today in this session.
Yeah, so this is supposed to be an open session and we can take up all the questions. So we have an expert, Dr. Tanmoy here, who can answer many of the questions. And I think there has been, some questions already here. Okay. Why cold press oil is required when heat generated in machine is well below smoking point of coconut oil? So would you be able to address this?
Once again, what is the question?
Why cold pressed oil is required when the heat generated in the machine is not very much?
Actually, if we are talking of the refined oils which are available in the market, they have been subjected to very high temperatures. And that is why cold pressed oils are a much better alternative. Cold pressed oils available from the Kachi ghanis, as we have seen, has been a part of our culture for many, many years. Even the Harappan civilization reports sesame oil. So that is to prevent oxidation or to prevent the heat from becoming inflammatory. I think cold pressed oils are required, and anyone can add on to this knowledge.
Yeah, I think I'll take the next question. Is it required to take beef, pork for nutritious carnivorous diet? You can answer this, Dr. Tanmoy.
Yeah, beef and pork also form a part of very nutritious food, and it can be a part of a carnivorous diet. Yes, why not?
Is it required to be? Is the question.
Not necessarily. Not necessarily, because many of us may have a mental block or a religious belief which may not allow us. In our country, I think if you are talking about red meat, goats, lambs are the mainstay of our carnivorous diet.
So 90% of the world population are not capable of taking ketogenic diet. So is it necessary? Is it needed to find a change metabolism of human body to suit high carb and seed oil? Are scientists and researchers not interested to change the metabolism of our body? So this tends to be a very paradoxical question. So someone says that scientists should change our metabolism so it suits refined carbohydrate and seed oil. Again, I think it is very
one cannot go against evolution.
I don't know. It is not a logical question at all. I think
at least they can eliminate these seed oils, na? Seed oils are the one actually.
Yeah, but this question is something they want the scientist to change our metabolism to such that it is
that
seed oil. The question is different. Okay. No. There's one more question, I think as a doctor you can answer. It is very difficult to reduce type 2 diabetes while taking statin. How to avoid statin that are prescribed by doctors to reduce diabetes? So what will you say to this, Dr. Tanmoy?
I would tell this gentleman that first of all, you must learn a fact that this cholesterol and saturated fat, they do not cause heart disease. Most of the patients who are getting statins are not benefiting from it. It is totally unnecessary. And if statins are unnecessarily given, then there is no need to take it. So there is no need to fear cholesterol in your diet. No need to fear saturated fat in your diet. None of the recent studies and meta-analysis have proved that saturated fat and cholesterol causes heart disease. So what's the question? Once again, I will be more specific.
Fine. So there is one more question which has come in, and which are the sweeteners we can use in low carb? And I think I'll give this to Sanjeev.
Yeah.
Sanjeev, you can answer this. Which
Hi,
are the sweeteners that
hi.
are available can be used in low carb?
Hi, good afternoon. Well, I mean, we're programmed to have a sweet taste, and I'm glad we saved this question to last very metabolically healthy, to have the sweet at the end of the meal or the end of the session. So that's a good thing. But to answer your question briefly, you've got choices between high intensity, non-nutritive sweeteners and natural nutritive sweeteners. So in the high intensity, you've got the familiar ones, which are like stevia and monk fruit. And the problem with them is that they are high intensity, so they have to be used with erythritol usually when they're sold, and that causes some problems in function. When food manufacturers look for sugars, even to reduce them, they're looking for taste and function first. So everybody compares it to sugars. So when we have all of them compiled, you find that really allulose is the closest to sugar in terms of taste and function. So that is, a new sweetener that is on the block and it's growing fast. In fact, Tate & Lyle, a large company from the UK, has basically stopped their entire sugar business and they're now focused mainly on sweeteners, and allulose is a key component of their offerings. So, to answer your question, low carb, you've got a number of options, but you have to be careful of what they're mixed with, how to use them, and what function that you need them for to apply them. The advantage with allulose, it's closest to sugar in terms of taste and function.
Yeah. Is allulose available?
Yes, it is. It's available in the US. In fact, Tate & Lyle rations their customers every year because there's a huge demand. It's one of the fastest growing uses of a low carb sweetener in the Asia Pacific region. So it's a small market at the moment, but it is growing.
Fine. So there is one more repeated question which is coming, and this will be addressed by Dr. Tanmoy. Again and again, this question will always come. How many eggs can we take in a day?
In short, any number, whatever you feel like or how much you have the attitude to take. If you calculate your protein requirement per day, and if you are a 70 kg man, and if you calculate 6 to 7 grams, so 10 such eggs can satisfy your protein requirement. But rarely does one take 10 to 12 proteins of 10 to 12 eggs per day. But answering your question, there is no upper limit of taking eggs per day. There are reports of people taking 30 eggs per day and causing absolutely no harm to the patient. And as discussed in this conference, if you are going on eggs, go slow and adapt it or adjust it to your gut, how your gut tolerates. Nothing to fear about the yellow of the eggs to add on to it.
Fine. So I think this question Jasmeet can answer. Can arthritis be treated with low carb? Now, this is just a question. We don't know whether it's osteoarthritis or rheumatoid arthritis. So in the context of both, Jasmeet, can you just...
See, arthritis, it's an inflammatory condition. So the thing is, the first line of action is, of course, that if you are even taking the steroids, if you have already started the steroids, the first thing is that you should correct your diet. At least you reduce the inflammation which is coming through your diet. Because most of the plant-based diets, which are mostly inflammatory, and even people like who are vegetarians, they go for a high amount of nuts and seeds, and they are very inflammatory. So just correct your diet first, and then try to reduce your steroids, because steroids and the anti-inflammatory drugs then can be reduced. You can talk to your doctor, and we have already treated few of the arthritis cases, both in a vegetarian and the non-vegetarian, like the carnivore diets as well, even the vegetarians as well. So it is possible. Yeah, Anup want to say
Yeah, I
something.
wanted to come in on the egg question. Eggs in isolation, if we decide the number, it is not the correct way. If you're on a low carb diet, then the number is irrelevant. If you're on a high carb diet, then everything goes for a toss as far as saturated fat is concerned, because ultimately you're on a high carb diet where fat won't be metabolized because of elevated insulin levels 24/7. So if the person who has asked this question is on a high carb diet, I would say take not more than one per day. If you're on a low carb diet, then there's no upper limit.
A very good clarification.
Yeah, there is one more question for Dr. Kaur specifically. Does low carb in itself improve gut health, or they should take some steps necessary to improve gut health before switching to low carb?
Yeah, so it's very important that you first correct your gut health, because if you are on high carbohydrate diet for years and years, you don't have a good gut health, because the human gut is actually meant to digest protein, and on low carb you prioritize proteins. But with a high carbohydrate diet, what is happening? You are not producing enough of the stomach acid. You don't have mucus layer actually. Even people destroy their mucus layer with a high carbohydrate diet. And what they do when they switch to the low carbohydrate diet and they start adding a lot of stomach acid, they take the betaine hydrochloride, they take a lot of apple cider vinegar and all other things, they actually lead to the condition of the gastritis. Even I have seen few cases. People, they don't have gastritis, but when they switch to the low carbohydrate diet, they get gastritis. It's not because of the diet, because you don't have a mucus layer. First, correct your gut. It's very important to correct your gut. At each and every step of your digestion, there should be right amount of the enzymes, right amount of everything, like which is digestive juices, which are required to digest your food. So low carb, people always blame low carb. Low carb, you shouldn't blame. First, you have to correct your gut. You just be on like a diet which can be easily digested, but not high carb. And gradually you switch from the high carb and start adding the proteins.
Yeah, Jasmeet, there's a question. How do you correct the gut? Because you told correct the gut first. How? Do we take supplement or how?
See, I don't recommend supplements. I have
How
never
do we do?
recommended
How do we
any
do?
supplements. The thing is, when we have to correct the guts, the various factors one have to consider, which is the one which I feel like sometimes even, just addressing the mind, that helps correct the gut, because mind plays a huge role over here. Because, everything, whatever activity we perform in our body is driven by our mind. And for the rest and digest, for resting and for digesting, our mind should be in the parasympathetic state. If you are already in a sympathetic state while you eat, or your sympathetic state is overactive, you won't be able to digest the food. You won't be able to move the food, because actually it's not the food that is moving. People, they switch to the low carb diet, they start adding protein, they say like they feel like the protein eggs, we had an eggs, it seems like the eggs are stuck over here. Why? Because the food has to move now, but it's not the food that is moving, it's the gut which is moving. It's the gut motility. If your gut is not moving, if the muscles of your gut are not healthy, and what are the nutrients your muscles needs? Amino acids. They need vitamins, they need minerals. And from where it comes? It comes from the diet. You were on the poor diet, you don't have these nutrients. So your gut muscles are not healthy, your mind is not connected with the gut. These are the factors first need to be addressed. And just by adding supplements, it will never help. Just by adding enzymes, and people just need a pill. by taking pepsin, by taking amylase, lipase, that is never gonna help you. Yes, Anup Singh, you can add to this.
Yeah, actually, I wanted to come on to that cold pressed oil versus the regular oil. You know, oil manufacturing process, to make it commercially viable at industrial scale, they use solvents. And one of the solvents used is hexane, I think, if I remember correctly. Now, exposure to hexane is not healthy. Whatever the science says, whatever the papers say, funded by industry, of course, never go by them. So that is why the importance of cold pressed oil comes into picture.
Now, Dr. Tanmoy,
Yeah,
there
I
are two.
wanted to ask Jasmeet, what is the role of fasting to heal the gut?
Yeah, fasting plays a huge role, but the thing is, see, our gut cells can regenerate in 15 days. This is what the research says. But 15 days, is it with fasting or with food? Nobody knows. Okay, they just say like it is in 15 days, but you know, if the gut cells are already damaged, we need the right nutrients. Okay, and at the same time, they need some rest.
Yeah.
Okay, so fasting is the one part but we can never put them on the longer fast, because all the people who have gut issues, they are already nutrient deprived as well. Okay,
Yeah.
and the oral supplements like the vitamin B's and all, because you know that vitamin B1, B12, B6, B3, they all are required to connect our mind to the gut. You know, and when we give them the oral supplements, they don't have a healthy gut, they don't even can absorb those supplements. So longer fast I never ever recommend. Like the intermittent fasting, like 15 to 16 hours, that is a good enough.
Fine. So, Dr. Tanmoy, there are two questions for you. One is, in your experience regarding millets in diabetes, how far beneficial it is?
It's not beneficial at all. I would avoid it, because though millets are, compared to sugar, it may be a little low in the rice, but you have to remember that all these are grains, and ultimately they break down into sugar. So whatever remission of diabetes is to be achieved, millets cannot be a part of it. I usually take patients off not only of rice and wheat, but also of millets, if they are.
If I can add, if I can add what I've been saying since I know ages, this complex carb, simplex carb, pure glucose nonsense.
Yeah, it
Has
doesn't make
to-
sense.
Yeah, it has to go, because, apply basics to it. If you are processing, let's say 300 grams of glucose in a day, whether it is coming from pure glucose or it is coming from so-called complex carbs or simplex carbs, body will need same amount of insulin.
Yeah, you can't
So
force
get the maths right, the science will follow.
Yeah.
And Anup, these complex carbs are actually damaging our guts, na?
Yeah, that is another factor. And
Yeah.
complex carbs is again, as I think it was in Akmal case from Pakistan. He clearly quoted studies where he says, all the micros and vitamins and everything is suppressed. And as I keep saying, fibers are not intelligent. Fibers, if they
Yeah.
slow down glucose, the PPG as they call it, if it slows down that, it will slow down everything. Because
Correct.
fiber is not selective, that it will attack only on, take action only on glucose. So fiber is again an industry push nonsense.
Yes.
Yeah, so there is one question addressed to two person here, Dr. Tanmoy and Ira. What does your plate look like? Dr. Tanmoy, you first.
Maybe just one item, meat, fish, or eggs, and once a day. That's it. Sometimes twice a day.
Fine. Ira?
Very, very monotonous, very boring.
Fine.
So I think everybody has had a look of my plate here, everybody who's on the screen. I really enjoy my meals, and it's not never boring for me, and I don't get tempted to take anything else on my plate. So I really love fatty meat, red meat, and I don't like chicken that much, but I do enjoy it once a while. And it's fatty fish. Today, for a change, I had some coconut chutney. And so these kinds of things, but I rarely choose carbs. I mean, they are not on my plate since years now. And I did have dairy till recently, a few months, 6 months back maybe. I don't have dairy except for a few, or 1 off cups of coffee, or maybe once in a month tea that I may want to have. So I think those kinds of things everybody enjoys once in a while just for diversion. But my usual plate looks like just fatty red meat, which I enjoy. I am mostly on 2 meals, and a lot of times, depending on the goals that I want to meet, I also do 1 meal a day, which doesn't typically mean that I, eat just out of one plate, but I restrict that eating window to 2 hours, which works well for me. So I divide my portion and I finish my meals and whatever chutney vatni jo bhi hai for that occasional one-off days when I'm trying to change a bit. Although it's not required, but just for diversion. So I close my eating window in say 2 hours. I also do when I'm on 2 meals, then I close my eating window within 4 hours. That works the best for me. And so 12 to 4 is my typical good time to eat. So I eat my breakfast at 12 p.m. or 1 p.m. maybe, and accordingly I close my eating window 4 to 5. So that's on 2 meals. On 1 meal, I keep the eating window for 2 hours and fatty red meat.
Fine.
And my eating window will be from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. So I might take 2 meals also. Main aim for me, a person of my age, is to meet the protein requirement. So I did 1 meal a day for nearly 10 years, but recently I found that it is to meet the protein requirement in 1 meal, maybe a bit too much. So I've kind of widened my eating window in the last 6 months.
Yeah, Mandar, you can ask.
Yes, Dr. Tanmoy. So we are told to not eat for about 6 hours before we go under anesthesia, right? So how does this go with people who may be on drugs which slow down the gastric emptying, or on some weight loss drugs, etc.? Does it complicate the anesthesia?
Not really. If the patient is, usually these drugs will slow down the GI tract, should be also given 12 hours before, the previous night.
Okay.
When the patient, we advise patient fasting for anesthesia, we tell them don't take anything after 10 p.m. So, and morning also, if the patient is on anti-diabetic drug, which is a concern, we omit the anti-diabetic drugs in the morning. Incidentally, this fasting is what logic with what I use to convince patients of diabetes. Imagine that you are a patient undergoing surgery, and that day morning you are fasting and you don't need the anti-diabetic drugs. So that is the fastest way to let you know that if you don't eat that food, you don't need the drugs.
Thanks.
Except for
Yeah,
one
so-
care. Except for one care. If you're a type 1 diabetic,
Yeah.
never skip the basal. Because post-surgery, it might spike. And then to correct that from that high spike, it takes a lot of, quite a lot of effort.
There's
We
one
do
more
check the
question.
morning blood sugar in every patient.
There's one question YouTube as to which fruits can be taken for gut health. So who can, Sandesh, you want to answer this?
Was that about fruits, Shashi?
Yeah, which fruit can be taken for improving gut health?
Yeah, I'd say low fructose fruits. So some examples. One of my favorites is the guava, which is not fully ripe. And unfortunately, most people in India like the ripe guava, but a semi-ripe or a unripe guava is one place to go. Sometimes papaya is okay, but not like the best. It's still in the mid-range. I would also, obviously, the avocado. In South India, we call it butterfruit. That's great as well. All berries are great. In fact, the polyphenols in berry, there are very few studies, weak studies about the polyphenol in berries and its impact on gut health. Not very conclusive, but especially some of the Indian tropical berries are great places to go.
Fine. So there is one question on what are the options for veg people. So let me answer that. Or Dr. Tanmoy, you can answer this. What are the options for veg people?
You have more experience,
Or
Shashi,
I
with
will
the
answer.
vegetarians.
So I'm a partial vegetarian. So see, the options are, first of all, we have a wide range of low starch or non-starchy vegetables you can take. And then you can add these dairy proteins in terms of paneer, yogurt, cheese as our protein source, maybe some, soft nuts and seeds are all okay. I know that the carnivore here will always say that, these some of the seeds and nuts may not be good, but when it comes to vegetarian, the choices are less. So I don't mind having this, soaking them and using them in the right way can actually minimize this. Though it may not be optimal, but it will get you in good health. So dairy proteins. See, in some cases, I would recommend even a small bit of rice is also okay in one of the meals. I mean, if you cannot do away with those things, drain the starch, use it. Sometimes I use resistant starch method. Drain the starch and keep it in fridge. Take it out the next day, and make it some. Add some those biryani or pulao masala with vegetables in it. Don't heat it, but you can mix it. So it has a lesser glycemic impact, is what we have seen. See, this is highly individual. For some people, it will work. For some people, it will not work. So it is highly individual. So I might recommend, maybe some small one meal is all okay. So the choices are restricted, but nevertheless, you can do it. So, and for vegetarians, there are many vegetarians who also opt for eggs. And we know this in our country. So if you can change that thought process and add up eggs and dairy protein like paneer itself will be, will be satiating for you, and you can carry on. In fact, you can be on a ketogenic diet also. Forget low carb, you can actually be on ketogenic diet with only eggs and paneer and yogurt and non-starchy vegetables. So it is not easy. It is difficult. It is not easy, but it is possible. And many of us have been doing it. Yeah.
One thing I would like to add to this, Shashi, like as you mentioned, nuts and seeds are okay. Yes, they're fine for the vegetarians, as you mentioned, by soaking and roasting them. But one shouldn't go for the processed low carbohydrate food. Like nowadays, the people are selling in terms of the low carbohydrate diet. All these nuts and seeds, they just grind them with a lot of other seeds. And I think we shouldn't recommend all these things for the vegetarians as well.
Fine. Arun Kumar, you wanted to add something?
I have a question from our speakers that they told that they are not recommending long fasting. My question is what they think about autophagy. This is for the Tanmoy, Dr. Tanmoy Das, and this is for the Dr. Jasmeet.
You mentioned that why we shouldn't go for the long fast.
No, you mentioned just recently that I'm not recommending long fast.
Yes, I never recommend long fast.
Why?
To most of my clients, I never recommend.
No, I'm not going to client. If in case of the autophagy.
In itself as well, there are many things. The one thing is due to the stress.
No, but my question is for autophagy. My question is for why not long fast for autophagy? And Dr. Tanmoy can also reply.
Autophagy is set to start at least after 20 hours of fasting. So, one autophagy in the long term has been, going by the reports, has been beneficial in prevention of cancer growth, has been very good for weight loss, and other purported benefits. I myself have fasted up to 72 hours. I used to do it once in 3 months, and 36 hours. I used to do that once in a month. I would say I did not have any problems. I did not have any issues because long fasting, I would say, is like marathon running. You have to start, get trained in that. So my initial fasts were, 16 hours and then 24 hours, 1 meal a day, which I said I practiced for nearly 10 years. And then on that level of fasting, going into a prolonged fast for autophagy benefits was not a problem for me. I managed to lose the weight, maintain the weight which I wanted to, and also feel very energetic throughout the fast and even after breaking. So I don't know, it's very difficult to measure autophagy, but going by literature, it starts at around 20 hours after fasting and continues, and it peaks off at 72 hours.
Yeah, doctor, that is after 72 hours is the maximum autophagy occurs. And in my experience, I did many times from 48 hours to 72 hours. But I was just asking whether there is any detrimental effect on our body for the long fast.
I think that as the Dr. Tanmoy mentioned, one should be trained enough to do the longer fast.
No. Question of training or not.
Yeah.
There is a detrimental effect on the body. Even if it is trained, if it is a detrimental effect on the body, why should you go for the long fast?
See, because I feel like, there are other factors that one should consider when they go for the longer fast. And people are not trained enough, but still, they are just seeing other and they are going for the longer fast.
Question of training. It is
See, the studies were done under the ideal conditions.
if there is a detrimental effect, even if you are trained, there is no detrimental effect on the body.
Under the
Sir,
ideal
can you,
conditions,
sir,
it
sir,
won't be
can you please
detrimental.
speak slow? Sir,
Yeah,
can you please speak
I
slow?
think
We
you are
cannot
little,
hear.
yeah.
Yeah, can you
You are
please
ne-
speak slow?
Yeah, see, there is one more question which has come in is fasting must for all? This is a question which has come in YouTube. So let me answer this. Okay. Fasting, especially from the perspective of vegetarian, I think is a must and beneficial. The reason is the choices are less. If you plan multiple meals, you will not have much choices. But if you plan 2 meals, it is possible. So if you do fasting, it is good. If you have blood sugar issue, your numbers will be much more stable with less peaks and all. Okay, so this is true for everything, even for vegetarian, even for egg-based. But vegetarians, it will be even more beneficial, not simply because you are reducing the number of, the meals since you don't have choices. Okay, so and people who are non-veg, they have so much animal protein that they don't feel like eating much. For example, Dr. Tanmoy here, he takes only 1 meal. So fasting is beneficial. While it is not a must, it is not a must, it is beneficial if you take. So there's one more question. This question will always come in all programs every time you log in, and that is, I will leave it to Dr. Tanmoy. Please mention what oils we should use. And you can also answer on that controversial, debatable topic of mustard oil. Yeah.
Okay. The person must be meaning cooking medium.
Cooking medium, yeah.
Cooking medium. Okay. For our country, traditionally the cooking medium has been ghee for a very long time. If you go back a few 100 years, ghee and butter and cold pressed local seed oils, and it has been coconut oil, which is not exactly coconut is also a big seed in the south, and then sesame oil. Sesame oil, as I said, is a very ancient oil in our country. It has been found even in the Harappan civilization, and such other like I will come to mustard oil the last. Mustard oil is also cold pressed oil which has been used in our country for centuries. Now, the mustard oil is very high in omega-3 compared to the other refined oils. So I don't see it as a health hazard. It has been used and it can be used while ghee and coconut oil and butter, I would say, is number 1, number 2, number 3 recommendation. But those who have been traditionally using mustard oil, I would say, okay, not much against it, but use it as little as possible.
What about the presence of erucic acid and the
Yeah.
debate of it causing dropsy? Because this is something which is unaddressed.
I don't know. This was due to some contamination in processing, I believe. But
Dr. Karma, there is a erucic acid present in the mustard oil, and that's why it is banned in the USA and total European countries. But in India, it is strictly going on. Whether it is cold press or whether it is, packed by the company, the erucic acid is there, and that too, it varies from 45 to 55%. It has some effect on that, and I think Sasikant had just reported. So, what do you think about that?
I have not come across any issues in my practice or personal use of this kind of complications from mustard oil. I don't know if anyone has some experience they can say.
Fine, take it.
Anup.
So we need to research a little more and get back on this. Yeah, Anup
Unmute.
wants to say something. Anup, unmute it and say, unmute.
Cannot hear.
I think
Audible now? Audible now?
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, if it comes to my choice of, grading the three cooking fats, of course, we are on common ground, ghee, butter, and coconut oil.
Yeah,
I would place coconut oil first for the
definitely.
simple reason that it is 2/3 is MCT, and MCT is shunted through portal vein to liver, where it is converted to ketones. Ketones cannot be stored. It can either be used or expelled. So even as North Indian, I'm using only coconut oil, virgin.
Fine. So there is one question which is migraine patients find fasting very difficult. I think Jasmeet, you can answer since you took up the migraine session.
You're muted.
Unmute. Unmute, Jasmeet.
Yes, fasting is the one thing which Dr. Angela don't recommend for the migraineurs. There are two things. One is because, while fasting, if you have to take enough of the salt, and you also have to hydrate well. You have to take enough water as well. And the other thing is you must be fat adapted at that time. If you are in a high carbohydrate diet, of course, that are the one of the trigger for the migraine attack, because as Angela mentioned, like glucose, which are like the carbs, which are nothing but the glucose is the one thing that trigger trigger migraine because the electrolyte imbalance that it creates. Okay, so the thing is, what migraines are? Migraines are nothing but the electrolyte imbalance. More specifically, it's the lack of sodium in the intracellular space. So anything which can trigger that while fasting, if you have high levels, high stress levels, there could be like lot of gluconeogenesis in the body that could lead to the migraine attack as well. So you should be fat adapted. You have to take enough salt. You have to hydrate well.
Fine, thanks. So, Mandar, you can ask one question. Just after I ask, there's one crucial question coming in. Is this again one of the hotly debated and always asked question? And I want Dr. Tanmoy to take up this question. Is which salt we should use? The plain Tata salt or Senda Namak or Himalayan pink salt? What is it and why?
Salt, first of all, salt is essential, and at the end of it, when you grind it, it really doesn't matter. Though table salt is said to be refined, it can be used. And the Himalayan pink salts and the other fancy salts which are available are, I don't think they add on any extra benefits other than extra minerals. I may be wrong.
And they're
Yeah,
lacking sodium, iodine as well.
Yeah, no, I'm just
iodine,
coming to
which
that
is very
point. I'll
important.
come to this point because, see, in India, we are primarily vegetarians. The source of iodine
Yeah.
becomes very less. We
Yeah.
use even less milk. Everything is defatted and skimmed milk. And we have come across cases where if people switch to uh, Himalayan pink salt, they have seen a disturbance in the thyroid level. And couple of person even sent me the lab report where they say that suddenly the sodium level in blood seems to have gone down since they have started using Himalayan pink salt compared to when they were using plain salt. So I think the recommendation is always to use iodized salt. In fact, Angela Stanton also specifically recommends not to use these pink salts and all. She recommends for especially migraine patients only iodized salt or plain sodium salt.
Plain salt, yeah.
Sea salt, of course, is best. Sea salt is best.
The rock salt also having some metal, detoxification. Hello, metal toxification is there in rock salt. What do you see there, Dr. Tanmoy?
Metal toxification.
Metal impurities are there in the rock salt.
There would be impurities. Okay, yeah, that is gone.
So
Fine,
I
take
have a question from Twitter for Anup. Is there a after this tweet, why is there a perception that LCHF is expensive? Anup?
Well, am I audible?
Yeah.
Yeah, there are a few reasons for it because when we look at cost, we look at in independent silos. Nobody calculates the cost of avoiding pills. Nobody looks at the cost of reduction in insulin.
Cannot hear you.
Adjust your setting.
Plus, session, there was one patient who went off 125 units, that's 7,500 per month. Now, in 7,500 per month, even the poorest of the poor, in the sense that who's working and eating 5,000 rupees worth of crap, can do a 7,500 worth of healthy diet where there is no risk of landing into being a diabetic, right? And if I look at my case, 8 kgs of
Voice gone again. I think battery is low.
Battery
pills
issue.
avoided. Just a minute, I'll just take this one. Now clear?
Yes.
Yeah. So 8 kg of pills avoided, no chance of landing on insulin in this life. And from 2012, no doctor visits, no hospital visits. I do my test once in 2 or 3 years. So imagine if I calculate the cost of my meat also, which I am now on, and then add up all these extraneous costs which nobody looks at. Even carnivore is cheaper than compared to, following high carb, which is perceptibly cheaper, but in totality, it is very expensive. And one cost which nobody can quantify is the monetary advantage of getting your A1C down from 9 to 5.6 and below. One stent in life can cover your 10 years of low carb cost, diet cost easily.
Fine.
That's a
So
brilliant statement.
Sandesh, you can take the last question. And I think 4:30 we are going to invite everyone in for the closing ceremony. Sandesh, you raised your hand now.
No, I just wanted to answer that question.
Okay.
I mean, now obviously what Anup says is, picture perfect. The other part we miss in a low carb, high fat is it's very unlikely that you can have 3 meals a day if your LCHF is well formulated. So in that essence, you're going to pay only for 2 meals and not 3 meals. So you're going to save a lot of cost in that. Second is the other part is the paying the doctor in the future. The third most important part, which I love, is the time you get back to do other things, which is also if you want to factor that, it's also $1 or a rupees, because you're not spending time in the kitchen 3 times a day versus 2. So I think those are factors that we don't tend to see.
Fine. I think so. So I think we have come to the end of the session.
Shashi, there is a question if you want that Prajakta is asking from Kunal. If you want.
No, we can share. I think.
Okay.
Kunal, if you can answer in 2 minutes, she just wants to ask a weight loss journey. That's all.
Actually, she want to ask, like, because you lost some weight on the high carbohydrate diet as well, and now you switch to the low carbohydrate diet. So what difference does it make?
So answer in a minute.
Your
voice is unclear.
Volume is weird.
There's some issue.
Sound is weird.
Is it better now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, Prajakta, to answer your question, the journey on a weight loss journey on a low carbohydrate diet, along with intermittent fasting and strength training, you just transform yourself from someone which feels a lot of lethargy, and your mental state, everything improves on a low carbohydrate diet. You get more energy, everything improves. So it's a tremendous journey if you go on a low carbohydrate past 6 months in a healthy way without taking any sort of fat burners, nothing. And I'm halfway in the journey. I want to lose another 20 of diet.
Thanks, Kunal. Can you take Dr. Ansari in? Trusha, please take Dr. Ansari in.
Yes, sir.
And we'll take the rest later. Dr. Ansari, welcome.
Marhaba, thank you.
Ira, you want to address?
Yeah. Dr. Ansari, welcome to the session, and we are almost at the end of the session. I gave an introduction of you in the morning.
Yes.
Would invite you to introduce yourself.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm Dr. Salih Al-Ansari, family and community medicine from Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. And I attended the last conference in October, and I really enjoyed it and supported somehow in the region with my Twitter account. with more than 40 tweets that brings a lot of good notes that were mentioned. And after that, I had a good session with a podcast with Dr. Shashi, and I published in Arabic a summary of the last conference on how to build advocacy for low carb, and to complete the introduction, I am very much interested to support low carb, and I do advocacy for 4 main areas in the lifestyle: walking, intermittent fasting, sleep, and low carb intake. And really, I find it very good for me as a public health consultant to advocate for the main important behaviors: walking, low carb, good sleep, and intermittent fasting. And I really find it very good to publicize in the Arabic states.
So thank you.
Here,
Thank you.
You've stressed a lot on walking. I don't know how much of the low carb is implementable in your country, because as I understand from our last conversations, you said it's a bit difficult, but nonetheless, you're trying from your end to motivate people to adopt a healthier lifestyle. And to that effect, you have introduced a lot of walking squads in your area, if I understand correctly.
Yes, this is true, and I really managed to be a good advocate for walking in the Arab states. I have an Twitter account which followed by more than 139,000 people, and I managed to do a lot of walking groups. By now, I can talk about 250 walking groups in different areas of Saudi Arabia, and the spread of the world has become wider than Saudi Arabia. The Gulf states, Jordan, Turkey, those people who know what is happening on walking in Saudi Arabia over the last 10 years has helped me a lot to spread the word among other Arab states more than Saudi Arabia. And now really we find a good move in our country and Arab states to, whether it is walking in nature or walking as an indoor for treadmills and these things, as well as hiking and going for mountains and nature walk, and it becoming very much prevalent and enjoyed by more and more people in the Arab states, especially in Saudi Arabia over the last, we can talk about 5 to 7 years. People are very much enjoying this, and the message is propagated.
Do we have time for one question, or are we done?
Yeah.
I said, are we done with the time? Or
Yeah. So thank you, Dr. Ansari, for coming.
Can I add?
Anup, Anup.
Yeah, Dr. Ansari, walking, yes, you talked about it in our last interaction also. Now, since this is more of a metabolic health, which covers diabetes primarily, associated with it is obesity and everything else. What is your benchmark of assessing the success of this activity that you are promoting as far as diabetes is concerned? My question is 2 parts. Are you just looking at weight and blood sugar, or are you also looking at blood sugar and insulin?
I'm talking about the weight mainly, because this is the most important push that we can do for metabolic health. And I'm talking about walking plus lifestyle, especially good nutrition and concentrating on low carb. And what I can talk about very much is the success stories that I do manage and publicize. I'm now talking about more than 200 stories of people who manage to control their diabetes, their chronic disease through walking as well as lifestyle. And I have a special Twitter account, Walk Stories KSA. It is mainly in Arabic about people who manage to do it through walking as well as low carb and intermittent fasting and other lifestyle changes. But before I leave, I can just talk about quickly about advocacy for low carb. We need to invest much more, because I can notice that lots of the people who attended this conference are talking about the case by case or face-to-face education. In the public, we are talking about different attitude. We are talking about tweeting, content, training, publicity, and these things. And really, we need to push more on advocacy, because this means lobbying, it means awareness, it means creating more and more active people to push with us on low carb mediation. Because I feel that talking to several people in your practice is limited to the people who are learning and doing the change in themselves. But the people in the public, in the social media, we need to have a different approach. And I was following all what you have presented, you and the speakers, and really we want to make low carb as a word of mouth. People should be able to teach themselves and teach the others. And I really followed Dr. David Cavano and Thomas Seifried, who are really giving me a lot of things to think about. How can we advocate for low carb? And probably you can consider maybe in the future to have another similar conference that talks about advocacy, building support, convincing people, not only case by case or clinical practice alone, which is all of them are doing very good thing, but publicity in the social media and nowadays are really helping us to fasten our steps toward a good earth with low carb.
Yeah, but Dr. Ansari, somebody has to pay for all this. Somebody has to pay for all these, because we cannot be doing it. We cannot be doing it till eternity from our pocket.
I totally agree. Thank you very much.
So, Dr. Ansari, thank you very much for coming in for the closing ceremony.